What if I told you that, in order to find peace, I had to be called ungrateful, crazy, and a destroyer of my own family? They called me the black sheep, but today I know I was the only one brave enough to break the cycle. My name is Julia. I'm 34 years old, and I grew up in a small town in the countryside. I was always told I was difficult. I was always the different one. But the truth is, I just felt things deeply. I could sense when something was wrong, even if no one else admitted it. I'm the middle child, an older sister who was always the favorite, and a younger brother who was the baby of the family, the untouchable one. To everyone else, my parents were the perfect family. My father was respected in church. My mother was that always smiling woman, active in the community, praised by all. But behind the walls of our house, everything was different. From a young age, I was blamed for everything. If my siblings fought, it was my fault. If my mother got upset, it was because I was provoking her. I grew up walking on eggshells. And the worst part? I thought that was normal. In my childhood, my mother used a very effective tactic: silence. Whenever I did something she didn't like, sometimes just laughing too loudly or asking a question, she would stop talking to me for days. I was 9 years old, and I thought my mother hated me. She didn't hit me, but the absence of her gaze hurt more than any beating. And my father? He would say, "Your mother is sensitive. You need to control yourself." In other words, it was always my fault. That logic shaped me. I began trying to predict their every move. I became an anxious, perfectionist child, always trying to prove I was worthy of love. In my teenage years, the emotional games got worse. My sister could go out, date, and was still the pride of the family. If I was 5 minutes late, I'd get a lecture on how disappointing I was. I started noticing something strange. Everything I did was twisted into the worst possible interpretation. If I got a good grade, they said it was just to show off. If I cried, it was just drama for attention. They built me up as the villain in our family story. Outside the house, my family was all praises. But inside, my mother would say things like, "You ruin the atmosphere in this house. Your presence brings the energy down." And I believed it. I thought there was something wrong with me. I began developing eating disorders. I blamed myself for not being loved. I hid. My room became both a refuge and a prison. Because of this, I entered adulthood with my self-esteem in ruins. I got involved with abusive men. One of them even repeated the same phrases my mother used to say: "You're hard to love. You complain too much." It was like I was trying to relive the same trauma, hoping that this time I would be validated. My sister was called the queen of the house. She could lie, fight, disobey. Still, she was treated like royalty. I, on the other hand, was always told, "You need to set an example." But how can you set an example when no one teaches you anything, when everything you do is used against you? I remember one time when my brother broke the living room TV. My mom looked at me and said, "You should have stopped him." I was only 11 years old. It was like I was responsible for keeping everything in order. I became the emotional janitor of the house. But no one took care of me. As a teenager, there was no such thing as privacy. My mom would enter my room without knocking. She read my journals, searched through my drawers. And when she found something she didn't approve of, a letter from a school friend, for example, she would humiliate me, call me shameless, say I was losing my way. One time I printed a beautiful quote about freedom I found online. She read it, tore it up, and shouted, "Trying to fly? You're nothing without us." That marked me. I became ashamed of dreaming. Later, as an adult, I landed a good job. It was a big deal to me, a step toward independence. When I told my mother, she simply said, "We'll see how long you last. You're not strong enough." Nothing I did was celebrated. It was like I always had to prove something, and still, it was never enough. Once, I won an award for a project I developed. She looked at it, faked a smile, and said, "If it were your sister, she'd already be on TV." That's when I understood. My light bothered her, and so she had to dim it. Whenever something went wrong at home, I was the scapegoat. When my father lost his job due to a bad decision he made, my mother cried and said, "It's because you bring us shame. God is punishing us." That devastated me. I spent months feeling guilty. I stopped eating properly, had anxiety attacks, but no one noticed, and if they did, they pretended not to. In our home, faith was used as a tool for control. Everything was God's will, including my submission. If I disagreed with something, I'd hear, "The Bible says, children must obey." My mother said God used her to shape me, that she was the divine instrument to break my pride. But what she called pride was just my attempt to exist. 3.13 The attack on my appearance. My parents constantly criticized my appearance. If I wore something different, they said I looked vulgar. If I cut my hair, they said I looked like a boy. Nothing was ever good enough. I grew up hating my reflection in the mirror. One time, an aunt gave me a dress as a gift. When I wore it out, my mother said, "Don't get excited, that doesn't make you look pretty." I was 14. I never wore dresses again. They sabotaged my friendships, said no one was good enough, called my friends' parents pretending to be worried about me, spread lies that I was unstable, difficult, problematic. I started isolating myself. And when I was alone, they said, "See, no one can stand you." It was a cruel cycle, and I believed I deserved it. Everything changed when I discovered that my mother had told the whole family that I was unbalanced and made things up. All because, for the first time, I had spoken up. I told her I couldn't take the way she treated me anymore. She reacted with fake tears, played the victim, and turned everyone against me. My uncles, my grandparents, even my cousins started looking at me differently. That's when I saw the whole structure was built around maintaining a scapegoat, and I was that scapegoat. Because I told the truth, because I broke the silence. I remember the day I cried so much alone in my apartment that I threw up. I realized I would never be enough for them, because the problem wasn't who I was. It was the fact that I could see through the masks. The pain was freeing. That was the day I decided I would no longer apologize for existing. Breaking away from a narcissistic family is like leaving a cult. They make you believe that without them, you'll die. And for a while, it feels like it's true. I was called ungrateful, rebellious, sick. My mother even said, "You'll bring us shame even in death." And still, I walked away. I blocked numbers, left family WhatsApp groups, isolated myself for protection. And yes, it hurt like hell. I started therapy. I dived into YouTube videos about narcissism. And that's when I understood my story wasn't unique. So many people were also the black sheep, when in fact, they were the most aware. I started journaling, rewrote my story, stopped seeing myself through their eyes. Little by little, I rebuilt my self-esteem. I realized I deserved love, real love. The kind that doesn't hurt, doesn't silence, doesn't manipulate. For years, I didn't know who I truly was. My whole personality had been shaped to please, to pacify, to avoid conflict. Discovering who I was felt like being born as an adult. To this day, I still get nervous around overly friendly people. I stay alert. But I've also learned to set boundaries, to say no without guilt, and to walk away when something starts to hurt. Could go back in time, I would have believed the first signs. I would have protected my inner child more. A family that makes you sick is not a home, it's a prison. Cutting ties with them brought loneliness, but it also brought peace. For the first time, My life is mine. If you're going through this, if you feel like the black sheep, misunderstood, always blamed, know this: you're not alone. You can break free. You can start over. Leave a comment below if you've ever felt like you had to walk away from your own family just to survive. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this, and send us your story. Your story can help others see that the problem isn't them. It's the cycle that needs to be broken.